Salutations, ladies and gentlemen. I am the mighty Mander, and today I've got something very, very special for you guys. My very first top 10! I plan to make top 10s a regular addition on my channel, and so today, just to sort of try out the format, I am counting down my top 10 favorite video games of all time. Just a disclaimer, this is not a list of what I consider to be the best video games of all time. It's just my personal picks based on how much I've played them and how much they stuck out to me when they were new. Also, the number one entry on this list does contain some pretty major spoilers, so can't say I didn't warn you. Spoiler alert. Alright, now that that's all out of the way, let's get started. Call of Duty has got to be the most divisive franchise in the history of gaming. I can almost guarantee that if you bring up this series in a gaming conversation, you'll either get a love it or hate it response. Very few people seem to be in the middle, but I consider myself one of them. This game is at number 10 probably for that very reason. The stigma associated with Call of Duty was almost enough to knock it off the list, but I just couldn't do it. I treat these games the same way I treat a Transformers or Expendables film. They're big budget, blockbustery cheese that you can just sit back and have some fun with. And my favorite out of all the cheese has got to be the first one that I really got into, which is Modern Warfare 2. The campaign had some of my favorite action moments of the series, awesome characters like Soap and the legendary Captain Price, and one of my favorite levels ever, Cliffhanger. I also dumped countless hours into the multiplayer during my early high school days because of its great, varied range of maps and weapons. And the cooperative special ops mode wasn't half bad either. Fun fact, this was actually one of the few games that I've actually gotten all of the achievements for on Xbox 360. Even though I got all the achievements, I was never especially good at this game, particularly the multiplayer, but to be honest, who cares? I had a lot of fun playing this game with my friends, and in the end, isn't that all that counts? When I played Fallout 3 for the first time, and every time since, it gave me a feeling that not many games have ever given me, a feeling that I was on a personal life-or-death adventure. I'm not necessarily huge on RPGs at all, and when I first played Fallout 3, the RPG aspect really intimidated me, but the rest of the game was so enthralling that I was over that in an hour at most. That was the point that I really got into the groove of the game. The main story may be short, and the side quests may be few and far between, and the combat may be glitchy and weird sometimes, but absolutely none of that detracts from how fun this game is to play, at least for me. For someone like me who had way too much time on their hands, this game was a journey that never seemed to end. Most of my favorite parts of the game didn't even involve a main or side quest. I would just be trying to get from point A to point B, and awesome shit would just happen. I didn't even have to do anything, the interesting stuff just came right to me. I always thought that one of the best sequences in the game was just making the long trek down the interstate into Rivet City. It wasn't scripted or anything, it was just fun. You pass a lot of interesting people and places on the way, and it felt like I was making my own journey. Rarely is there a game with so much worthwhile content packed in. To put it into perspective, I've played this game a lot, and I feel like I've barely even scratched the surface of what's possible. To top it all off, Fallout 4 was just officially announced the other day. All aboard the hype train! Very few games can say that they single-handedly redefined their own genre. That's where my next pick, Burnout 3 Takedown, comes in on this list. The first two entries in the series, the original and the second one, Point of Impact, were fun, but they were hit or miss for most people. Burnout 3 seemed to be a revolution when it came out in 2004, and in my opinion, it redefined not just its own series, but the entire arcade racer genre. Think about all the games that were cut from the same cloth as this one. There are a lot of them, and this one was the very first to do it. Takedowns became a staple of the series, and I couldn't be happier about it. There's some kind of juvenile satisfaction to brutally smashing your rivals off the road instead of just tipping your hat and politely passing them. The main game was styled like a world tour, which meant there were some pretty awesome locations, with some great race types that, while not offering too much variety, provided just enough to keep things interesting. My two personal favorites were probably Road Rage and Face Off, the former being because, well, it's all about takedowns, which are the best part of the game, and I'm a very violent person, and Face Off because it was the only game mode I felt truly challenged me. Because there was only one opponent, they were very fast, very aggressive, and you had to use your boosts sparingly. It was a weird change of pace from the balls-to-the-wall action of the rest of the game. Speaking of, I haven't even mentioned the crash mode, in which your only goal is literally to just destroy everything in the selected junction. There were so many cars and so many awards to unlock that even now, after 11 years, I still haven't unlocked everything. Though, that may just be because I suck. Oh well. What do you think when you think first-person shooter? It's probably something like Modern Warfare 2, to be honest, though I can't speak for everybody. Well, this next entry serves as a reminder that not every game has to be bloody and violent to be good. Portal 2 did so much with so little, with its grand spanking total of 7 characters, 2 of whom technically have the same mind, 2 others of whom are robots who can only emote, and 1 who doesn't even fucking talk, and the extremely simple premise of shooting portals in the wall to solve puzzles. Portal 2 turned into one of the darlings of the 7th generation, and a true testament to what Valve can actually do. The first one, while containing the same concept and morbid sense of humor, was little more than an experiment, tacked on to the end of the orange box as a nice bonus. It was great, but it's nothing compared to its sequel. It was a close call as to whether it was going to be this or Half-Life 2 that would go on this list, but Portal 2 just stuck with me a tiny bit more. The story is fantastic, the characters are some of the most memorable in gaming history. J.K. Simmons is Cave Johnson. Ugh, whoever is responsible for that, I owe them dinner and a hug.
You're not part of the control group, by the way. You get the gel. Last poor son of a gun got blue paint. All joking aside, that did happen. Broke every bone in his legs. Tragic, but informative. Or so I'm told.
And the co-op was just the icing on the cake. Number 6 is Tony Hawk's Downhill Jam on the Wii. Remember that one? No, I'm totally fucking with you guys. It's actually Tony Hawk's Underground 2. I'm not sure if anybody has actually played Tony Hawk's Downhill Jam, but if you played it and you actually liked it, well, then I apologize for that comment. I've always loved the Tony Hawk series. In fact, the first game is almost as far back as my video game memories actually go. I can't really remember a game that I played actively before the original Pro Skater. Though my favorite of this legendary series has got to be Underground 2. It was neck and neck between this one and Pro Skater 3, but in the end, I had to go with the one that I simply have more fun playing, and that's Underground 2. The story mode sees you embarking on a worldwide skate competition tour with some of the big names in skateboarding, including a lot of Tony Hawk regulars. This takes you from Boston to Australia and pretty much everywhere in between. Not only do I love the idea behind the story, I mean, who doesn't want to go on a party trip with all your friends all around the world? No one! That's fucking awesome! But I love the humor and the absurdity of all the goals that you had to accomplish. Just to put that into perspective, one mission has you raising the fucking dead in New Orleans, turning everyone at Mardi Gras into zombies and summoning an evil witch doctor. Then you have to skate down into the pits of hell and do a trick over a statue so that it shoots the witch doctor with a laser beam of holy badassery, and then you get to play as the witch doctor. And he has a tricycle. A squeaky one. Yay! In addition to the story mode, this game was the first to include classic mode, which basically crams the format of the first 3 games into this one, bringing back some of the classic maps along with it. Then there's the awesome and crazy customization options, which allowed me to create this lovely young man, robot thing here. Isn't he beautiful? I see this game as the swan song of the Tony Hawk franchise before it started to decline into the depths of gaming purgatory. I liked American Wasteland, but God, it was so unbelievably buggy, I can't even believe that they got away with releasing it. Hey, you never know, maybe the recently announced Pro Skater 5 can breathe some life into this one-time powerhouse. There are 2 sides to every coin, and if Burnout is one side of the racing game coin, then Forza is the other. I've been a fan of racing sims all the way back to Gran Turismo 3 on the PS2, but none have ever felt quite so complete as Forza Motorsport 4. The list of cars was absolutely endless, and Forza 4 had a special feature that seems like it was designed specifically for me. They partnered with Top Gear, which is my favorite show, to include commentary by Jeremy Clarkson about some of the cars in the Auto Vista mode.
This is a Lexus. I know, doesn't look like one, does it?
And also allowed you to drive any car you wanted, including the Top Gear Celebrity Lap Time car, on the Top Gear test track. I have to admit that most of my time playing this game, aside from the career mode obviously, was spent driving pretty much every car in the game on the Top Gear track. In my opinion, Forza 4 is the best racing game on the Xbox 360, and it might even be one of the best racing games of all time. And for me, as a die-hard car fan, that's just about the best thing in the world. Or, you know, the 5th best thing in the world. Because it's number 5. Okay, moving on. Whoever said that all licensed games were unplayable piles of garbage would probably be completely justified in thinking that, if I'm honest. But my next item on this list has got to be one of the few exceptions to the rule. It's SpongeBob SquarePants Battle for Bikini Bottom. This game came out when I was 7, and at that time, SpongeBob was probably my favorite TV show. So when I saw that they were making a game about SpongeBob, you better believe that I lost my goddamn mind. I played the absolute crap out of this game when I was a kid, and the replay value was so great that I didn't even actually beat the game until my 3rd or 4th playthrough. I went all throughout my years thinking this game was a guilty pleasure just because it was licensed, but it wasn't until I was getting the footage for this very video when I realized, why is it a guilty pleasure? I mean, this game is fucking amazing! It's basically a collectathon 3D platformer, vaguely reminiscent of games like Super Mario 64 and Banjo-Kazooie. And there's almost nothing bad about it. You get to play as SpongeBob, Patrick, and Sandy, and they all have unique abilities and challenges. The platforming's solid, the locations are unique and well designed, the humor is SpongeBob down to a T, and pretty much every character from the TV show makes an appearance. And when I say every character, I mean even Bubble Buddy is in this game. Fucking Bubble Buddy. Guy was in one fucking episode and he walks around this game like he owns a goddamn place. And it's far from a cameo. I mean, this guy is fucking everywhere.
I gotta say, Bubble Buddy, for a bubble, you really get around.
See, it's not just me. SpongeBob gets it too. Speaking of characters, aside from the omissions of Mermaid Man and Mr. Krabs, the entire voice cast from the show reprises their roles. Even Tim Conway, John O'Hurley, and Brian Doyle Murray, who only made guest appearances on the show, are included. This game ticks all the boxes of both a great licensed game and a great game outright, and I love it to death. Honestly, there's not much I can say about Super Smash Bros. For Wii U. I'm sure most of you are familiar with it, but in case you're not, it's a brawling-style fighting game in which up to 8 players battle it out using various Nintendo mascots and third-party characters. Everything about this game is awesome, and since its release in November of last year, I don't even know how many hours myself, my roommate, and our friends have dumped into it. It's provided endless hours of entertainment throughout my otherwise lukewarm freshman year of college, and because of that, I'm extremely grateful for it. Grand Theft Auto V is one of the greatest games I've ever played. I don't think any other game has the same amount of content and replayability. Even though the game is already a year and a half old and has just released its 3rd iteration, somehow it still feels fresh. But I like GTA 4 just a little bit better. I almost feel completely alone in having this opinion, and I accept that. GTA 5 is the superior game in almost every measurable way, but 4 struck a note with me that 5 is just not quite capable of reaching. I don't think I can stress how close it was between these two games. I was even originally going to include both of them in the same entry, but after thinking about it, GTA 4 just barely edged it out. It was the very first rated M game I was ever allowed to play, and I loved absolutely every minute of it. I personally think that Nico Bellic is one of the best protagonists in recent years of gaming, and the cast of supporting characters is extremely memorable. I remember being incredibly invested in Nico's story, on a level that very few games have ever reached for me, save for maybe the #1 entry on this list. Like with Call of Duty, I played online in this game for hours on end, just messing around the city with my friends. It was like our own personal playground. Then there was the incredible downloadable expansions, The Lost and Damned and The Ballad of Gay Tony, both of which, in an at the time unprecedented move, took 2 small characters from the story of GTA 5 and gave them their own unique tie-ins. It was this that probably inspired the use of the 3 separate protagonists in GTA 5. GTA 4 may be technically and visually obsolete now, but it will always be the best in the legendary franchise in my eyes. And my #1 favorite game of all time is... Yep, this is it. My favorite game of all time is Mass Effect 2. This was the first game that I got all of the achievements for on Xbox 360, and it was also one of the first games I ever actually paid for by myself. Before my M-rated days, I sat and watched as my brother played the first Mass Effect, and I found it just fascinating. The story, the aliens, the characters, the dialogue choices, it was fantastic. Then I asked if he was going to buy the second when it came out, and he said no. So I gave him my money and told him to go out and buy it, and the rest, as they say, is history. I can honestly 100% say that I have never been so enthralled with the story and lore of any game, movie, TV show, graphic novel, newspaper, travelable short, fucking anything, ever. I absolutely love the whole series, and if I were doing a list of top 10 franchises, Mass Effect would be right there at the top. But when I had to pick one entry, the second one was a no-brainer. Even if technically the stakes are higher in the third game, because, you know, fucking Reapers and shit, they never felt as high as they did in the second. I mean, it starts out with the death of the main character, for fuck's sake. I mean, how many games have the balls to do that? After you returned into the $6 Million Man, you were constantly being told that the task at hand was a complete suicide mission. Your choices in the game held an insane amount of weight, with some crew members full-on dying extremely emotional and graphic deaths if you didn't play your cards just right by solving arguments, performing loyalty missions, and choosing the right person for the right task. That scared the absolute shit out of me when I first got the game, because by the end, I had just gotten attached to each and every one of them. If any of them actually bit the dust, it was your responsibility as the player and yours alone. Not many games have ever held that kind of weight on the player, at least not that I've played. To top it all off, the game culminates in the greatest mission I've ever had the pleasure of playing in my entire life. 100% seriously, the suicide mission still gives me chills to play or even think about. Is it the action? Yes. Is it the badass boss fight at the end? Yes. Is it the music? Yes. Is it the fact that your entire team is in action on one higher than anything stakes mission facing impossible odds to take down the greatest threat to mankind ever? Yes. Yes. So much yes. It's all of those things and more. I can't even begin to convey to you guys how much I love this series, and as such, I'm already more excited for the upcoming 4th game in the series more than I've ever been for anything, ever. And there you have it. Those are, as it stands right now, my top 10 favorite video games of all time. Maybe somewhere down the line I'll do another list of another of my top 10 favorite games, but who knows? Like I said before, those are just my personal picks, so please feel free to share with me your personal picks. What's your favorite game? I'd really like to know. Well, if you made it this far in the video, first of all, I'd just like to say thank you very much for watching. It means a lot. And second of all, if you haven't already, don't forget to like and subscribe. Every little bit of support will go a long way in helping this channel grow. Well, that's about it for today, guys. I guess I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
I am the very model of a scientist Solarian. I've studied species Turian, Asari, and Batarian. I'm quite good at genetics as a subset of biology because I am an expert, which I know is a tautology. My xenoscience studies range from urban to agrarian. I am the very model of a scientist Solarian.